Welcome to Business Connection. I'm Liz Spencer. Hey, I have a great guy in studio with me. It's Chuck Keough. He's an attorney at law, and he's with Keough Moody, PC. Now, welcome, Chuck. It's nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about what your law firm does.
Our firm represents investors, it represents banks, it represents landlords, but the biggest segment of what we do is we represent community associations. And by that I mean condominiums, townhomes, and homeowners associations.
And I think that's fascinating because, you know, I'm part of a homeowners association, and I'm sure lots of people watching are currently or have been in some time in their life and don't necessarily think about the role that we play when we sit on a board like that, or what we need to know. Tell me, how do you help these communities associations? What do you do for them?
In Illinois, community associations are organized as not-for-profit corporations. So in the eyes of the state of Illinois, these are businesses. These are legal people, in a sense, legal persons. And they can do lots of different things that you and I can do under the law. They can spend money, they can borrow money, they can transact business with vendors, they can do lots of different things. They can be sued, they can sue. And for board members themselves, if anyone that's out there that's lived in a community association or a condo knows that you have these documents called governing documents generally. There's a declaration that gets recorded against the property, there's a set of bylaws, there might be a set of rules and regulations, and those things are supposed to be guiding a board member or the board as a whole in decision making regarding how do we run this business. But where we come in is we sort of fill in the gaps when there are questions that arise about, hey, I have this situation, but I don't necessarily see the answer in the documents. So what do we do?
That's neat, because I think many of us get involved with our homeowners association because of an issue, whether it be one personal to us and our property, or one that the association, especially here in Naperville, which is, you know, the Homeowners Confederation is very strong and very organized and a good group, and they often get involved with bigger issues. But that's how we come together or learn about that, and we often don't think of the role as a board member that we take, and that's where I think your education is really important.
Well, those documents define the scope of what it is this corporation is supposed to be doing. And the corporation, of course, is run by a board of directors that's elected. So when a new board member, for example, takes a seat on a board and says, okay, what am I doing here? Hopefully their first move is to read these documents. Secondly, be guided by the people around them that hopefully have been there before. Thirdly, if they're really lucky, they're managed by a professional property management company, which gives great guidance and does wonderful work. And finally, if you are encountering a situation in which you haven't dealt with before, you don't have someone who's been in that same situation before, maybe you call someone like me to say, hey Chuck, how do we do this?
Right. Well, and when we were talking off camera, you said one of the most popular questions is that we want to do this. Can we do this? Is the calls that you get.
Right. I mean, we refer to them as opinion letters.
Okay.
Someone calls us up and asks, how do we accomplish this thing we're trying to accomplish? And they run the spectrum as between borrowing money, spending money, hiring contractors, firing contractors. Associations get in trouble with fair housing related issues or ADA issues if the Americans with Disabilities Act may apply. And those kinds of things, which most people don't have a lot of experience dealing with, probably want to be talking to someone with knowledge in that subject matter.
Absolutely, because I think, you know, as I said before, most of us get involved on the board because of some personal issue, and we're all coming from different walks of life. We may be a dentist, we may be a teacher, we may be, you know, a television show host, so we don't necessarily know all the rules and regulations that go along with being a not-for-profit and a business entity that way. We're just trying to get the job done, and that's where you come in.
That's a good point, because I can't drill teeth either, and I can't fix a leaking pipe. One of the things we do as attorneys is we counsel our clients a lot about the kinds of decisions or the methodology in which they should be making decisions. If they have an issue governing how do they raise money, how do they spend money, how do they reserve for expenditures that may come in down the road.
Right.
Should they be talking to an engineer? Should they be talking to an accountant? Should they be talking to a banker? If it's a leaky pipe, don't call your accountant, call your plumber. Make the kinds of decisions you need to make that are reasonable and necessary, because as board members, they have lots of legal responsibilities that they may not be fully appreciating, because they don't merely exist in the governing documents themselves, they exist by state law.
So Chuck, lots of times board members are employees, so they're not necessarily business owners, so they may not necessarily understand everything that goes into running a board, because running a board, in my eyes a little bit, is a lot like being a business owner.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. As we spoke off camera, one of the biggest challenges to a new board member, as I mentioned, I've been on several boards, is understanding the framework in which this thing operates. What does it mean to conduct a meeting, to make a motion, to conduct board business? And if you haven't done it before, it can be tricky. And when you're guided by professional management, it's wonderful. But if you're a 6-unit condominium building and there is no professional management, who do you look to? Well, maybe you go online, maybe you do some research on your own, maybe you call your attorney. But it is challenging. And as I mentioned before, you compare the 6-unit condo to the 750-unit condo in Chicago, lots of different issues, lots of challenges, and having the kind of guidance you need is important.
Well, Chuck, and I hear from you that not only do you offer, you're an attorney, so you know the law, but there's a lot of help with decision making and understanding the policies and the guidelines, which I think is a little bit unique to you.
Well, it's hard to avoid. There's a political element to the kinds of decisions that boards make. So take, for example, a high-rise where you've got lots and lots of units, and you've got parts of the building that are wearing inconsistently. Now, let's take a step back and just presume for the moment that the governing documents say it's the board's job to maintain all of the parts of the building that are common. Well, this person's windows and that person's windows are not in the same shape, and the board decides, let's tackle this window first and this other window later. Those are political decisions that are supposed to be guided by good sense, sound judgment, but sometimes they don't recognize that they don't have to tackle the whole problem at once. They need to make a sound decision all along the way using the advice of other people, the window man or woman, the engineer, the architect, seeking the kinds of advice you need to solve the problem.
Right, well, and that is a great example, because there's lots of, you said politics involved, definitely, there's lots of emotion involved too. It's the place you live, and that's where I think someone like you can come in as that neutral third party to help kind of get us all on the same page.
The single issue board member that runs for one narrow thing and gets on the board and says, whoa, I have all these other decisions I have to make. Well, if they're going into it with an open mind and being objective and being really interested in helping out, they recognize that there's more to it than just that one thing they were elected to address. And it's challenging. And most of these not-for-profit boards that I represent serve without compensation. So, as we like to say, it's a labor of love, and but it is hard work. And most of the people I encounter that do this work do a great job.
Well, and Chuck, I think you're a great guy for helping out with everything.
Well,
and
thank you.
I wish you continued luck. We're going to check back with you and see how everything's going. We're going to be right back with more Business Connection. Thank you.
Thank you.